Hi, I'm Travis Lane. Thanks for your interest in my investment calculator. Like most of the tools that I've developed in-house that I've placed on this website, I feel like this investment calculator fulfills a specific need that isn't really met anywhere else on the market or using any of the tools that I found online. In this case, most investment calculators you're going to find will have you put in things like your income, your current age, your expected age at retirement, maybe your desired retirement income, or a couple of other things, but they're not very flexible. My calculator gives you a lot of options. So for instance, if you wanted to calculate losing a job or maybe having a child and one of the members of your household not working for 2 years, you can do that and you can change the incomes dynamically as you go through your life. This is really beneficial because it lets you get a more accurate description of how much you're going to make and how well your investments will do over time. So with that, this is a tutorial that teaches you how to use the program. I hope it's clear and I hope it's easy to use and I hope it benefits you in your planning. Thank you. Okay, first off, let's download the program. As you can see, we're at travisalane.com/tools, which you're probably already on this page, and then you'll need to click here to download. As usual, you will need Excel or another compatible spreadsheet software. And again, this is a very powerful tool that requires the use of macros, which is just code that causes the cells to do certain things. So you'll need to enable editing since it's from an online source. And then you'll need to click Enable Content to enable the macros. And then I'm going to go ahead and resize so that it fits on one screen, and we'll begin. As a quick reminder, speaking of macros, I always leave my macros available for viewing, so if you're concerned about security, you can check out the code. You can access that by pressing Alt F11 or by going to the Developer tab in the ribbon. Now let's get started on what the actual program does. Most online retirement calculators that you're going to find are going to basically do what one line of my code does, without any of the flexibility I'll talk about here in a minute. So for instance, in your age, let's say you're 30 and you want to plan for retirement at age 65. You make $50,000 a year, you're paid bi-weekly, so you get 26 checks, and let's say you can kind of assume a 3% annual raise. This column here is for pre-tax investment, which would be something like an employer-sponsored 401k. So let's say you're going to put in 6% of your gross paycheck. And then let's say your employer matches 50% of that 6%, which is a pretty standard matching rate in the current environment. The percent taxed per check is going to be basically how much of your paycheck do you take home. So for instance, if you're paid gross $2,000 on a paycheck, and you take home $1,500, that would be 75%. So your tax rate would be 25%. And we'll go ahead and put that there. This column is for investments post-tax, for instance, a personally controlled IRA or a Roth IRA. So 10% of what you take home will be invested in the post-tax account. That's what this value is. If it's 5%, we'll go ahead and make it 5. And then you can also calculate for your savings percent. For instance, the same thing, if you save 10% of your take-home pay, then you would put that here. These two columns to the right are the annualized gain on your investments. So this investment column is going to apply to both your 401k and IRA, and we'll go ahead and call it 9% just to show. And then this will be the interest you gain on your savings. Neither of these can be 0 or else you get an error. But we'll put it something very, very small just to be conservative, like 0.1%. Next, you need to fill in the current values of your accounts. So if you want your current savings to be $10,000, your current 401k, at age 30, we'll call it $50,000, and your current IRA, so again at age 30, we'll call it $20,000. Then you'll simply hit calculate, and you'll see that at age 65, you're predicted to have $4.3 million total. That's between $2.9 million in 401k and $1.15 million in your IRA. Your savings has also grown substantially, but you could probably ignore that just to be safe. One extra feature, if you wanted to plan for specific timelines, is this amount at age. So for instance, if you wanted to know how much you had at age 40, type that in and you'll be able to see your total and the total of each account. Now let's get a little bit more interesting and get into what this tool was really intended to do. Let's say you're doing some planning early and you're starting at age 20. And because you're starting early, you want to retire a little bit early, and we'll call it age 60. Well, instead of just putting 20 to 60 here, and assuming that everything else will stay the same, let's introduce some life changes, and we'll see how that would affect the calculation. So let's say between ages 20 and 25, you and your spouse make $50,000 a year. And we'll leave all of this the same. Since you're pretty young, let's go ahead and say you're going to invest aggressively, and you're going to get a 10% return on your investments. Since you're starting at 20, we'll give you a smaller savings, and we'll give you a pretty minimal 401k. And the same for IRA. We'll say you saved a little bit during college. So now, between 20 and 25, you're going to make $50,000 with 3% annual increases and invest at these rates with a 10% rate of return. However, at 26, let's say that you and your spouse decide to have kids. So one of you is going to take off of work and stay home with the kids for a while. We'll say for 2 years. So between 26 and 27, your income might drop to $40,000. And we'll leave all the rest the same. Then when your spouse returns to work, we'll say between 28 and 35, that's going to be a significant rise in your income with them returning back to work. And we'll say, as a couple, you make $80,000. Again, we'll leave all the rest the same for now. In your 30s and lower 40s, let's say you get some big career opportunities, and between 36 and 50, your income starts out at $150,000, something substantially larger. However, since you're getting older, we'll go ahead and change your interest that you're gaining on your investments to a more meager 8%. You're being a little bit more conservative approaching retirement. And then finally, between 51 and 60, maybe you want to take off and work a little bit slower before you retire. And instead of $150,000, the couple makes $100,000. And at this point, you're going to be investing very conservatively, and we'll say 6% return on your investments. Now, we can calculate over a whole lifetime, including some prospective changes, and see what the results will be. You can see here there are some changes in the curve. For instance, it kind of slows down a little bit here around 25. Well, that's because our income decreased because we expected one of us to not work while we had kids. Again, when we hit this 50 and we begin to work a little bit less, it slows down once again. However, you can see your future total, your future IRA, your future 401k, and as usual, you can check out at any age. So maybe if you felt like $2 million was enough to retire on, you could retire at 50, and you would know that from looking at this calculation. And really, this is only a fraction of the things that you can change. You'll notice we kept a lot of this the same, but perhaps when you got that big promotion between 36 and 50, your benefits increased. So instead, you're going to invest 8%, and your employer is going to match 100 because of some stock option matching. Well, we can calculate again and see what difference that would make. Just a few tips for operating this properly. Be wary of this percent annual raise, as the compounding can kind of get away from you. For instance, it might be more beneficial to just say $50,000 at 3% annual raises over the course of a lifetime versus some of these big jumps that we see. So you'll want to be realistic about inflation adjusting your expected income. It's going to require a little math, but it's going to be a lot more powerful and accurate than some of the basic tools that we use. Also, with this specific calculator in mind, don't list the same age twice. Otherwise, you'll double dip on the calculations and you'll get a little bit more compounding than you should. So you'll notice that here I stopped at 25 and I picked up at 26, then ended at 27 and picked up at 38, and you get the picture. This has been a pretty quick walkthrough, but I hope that's because the tool is easy to use and fairly intuitive. As always, if you have any questions, I fully support anything that I provide, so please feel free to contact me via my website or any of the contact information listed there. I hope this really helps you in planning some specific details about your retirement future. If you have any questions about that topic, please feel free to contact me as well. Good luck, and thanks.